So if you're new to the Publications Committee, hello everybody, I'm Mariel Campbell. I'm the Publications Committee Chair, and welcome. If you are new or interested in joining us, please, down at the bottom of the agenda, which is in the chat, and I'll put here again for anybody who might have joined later, is put your name, email, and interest, please, so we can contact you.
Great. Wait to get up. What are you doing? Okay. Okay. Very nice. Oh.
Great. So how many folks do we have?
17 so far.
Nice, okay. What was the meeting right before this one?
Conference committee.
Are we working on Edinburgh? Is that it? Nice. I'm very excited about that one.
Talking about conferences, mostly conferences in general, and how we can spread ourselves out, and whether we take over the conferences or not.
Okay, well, why don't we start? I know everybody's adding their information, but with just a couple brief introductions. I know you're saying who you are on there. Again, I'm Mariel Campbell. I'm the managing editor, the editor for Collection Forum Journal, and Publications Committee Chair. And I've been doing this for the past 2.5 years, still on the learning curve, and happy to see all of you here. I'm going to, let's see, how should we do this? I will pass to, let's see who else is here. I'm going to pass to Julian because he's on the left of my screen. Glad to see you here, Julian.
Yeah, Jules Carter. I work at the National Museum of Wales as a Natural Science Conservator. I'm currently President-elect, and been hassling Mariel over Collection Forum editions and books, so all things fluid collections at the moment.
Who do you want to pass it to?
Oh, Carol.
Yeah, Carol Kelloff. I work at the Smithsonian. I'm the spinach archivist, along with Megan Toner and Lisa Palmer. And I'll give it to Anne.
Oh, Ann Penzel, no longer employed, hanging out in Nevada. And I have been doing book reviews. Lisa Goldberg will be doing them now. And they'll appear in the Collection Forum instead of the newsletter. Yes? Mariel? I'll pass it on?
Yeah, pass it on.
Okay. My friend John Simmons.
I'm not a member of the committee. I'm just here because of the discussion of the fluid book. But back in the Pleistocene, I was the managing editor and chairman of this committee. And we needed submissions then, too. I was the second editor after Paisley Cato, just for the historical record. Well, after Dan Faber and then Paisley Cato, just for the historical record.
And I guess, how about Genevieve next?
Sure. I'm Genevieve Tachi. I'm at the Harvard University Herbaria. I've been one of the associate editors for maybe 2 years now, year and a half, something like that. And hope to get herbaria papers, but apparently botanists don't want to write papers for us. So I will read anything Mariel wants me to and try to do a good job. In my other spinach hats, I am a co-chair of best practices, and I also am a member of the IDEA committee. So if anything comes up related to those things that you want information on, I can try to help.
We could have some best practices papers. That would be good.
Wouldn't it be great? Should I popcorn it?
Sure.
About
absolutely.
Mariana.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mariana Digigiacomo. I am the Natural History Conservator at the Yale Peabody Museum. I am also an associate editor for the Collection Forum, and I'm happy that I've been able to review some really cool conservation related papers in the past few months. And what else? I used to be up until a couple of days ago, co-chair of the Emerging Professionals Committee of Spinach. But now we have a brand new set of new co-chairs that are going to take over that. And that is me. Now I'm going to pass it on to Rita.
Hi, I'm Rita Zimkis. I'm at the MCZ at Harvard. I am the leaflets editor. I don't know what is it, an editor? What I do the leaflets. I do the leaflets. What else do I do? I'm currently member at large, helping with issues on the theft and security of collections with Paul. I don't know. I've done a lot of things in the past, but happy to be here now. And I came late, so I don't know who's.
How about Tiffany?
Hi, I'm Tiffany Adrain. I am the membership committee chair and have access to all the membership data. So if you haven't been able to get into the most recent version of the Collection Forum, that's my fault because I haven't sent your information to Alan Press, but it should all be updated now. And that's one of the jobs I do, making sure that Mariel and Alan Press have the information on who's a current member.
Thank you.
I'll pass it on to Paul.
Oh, hello, Paul Mayer at the Field Museum. I'm just sort of lurking in the background. I think I'm also Spinach president. I don't know what else we're supposed to say. I wasn't paying that close attention, but oh well. We'll pass it on to Susan. And Susan, if you could tell us everything you know about Carthage, Missouri, Mississippian brachiopods, that would help me out for a talk this evening.
Don't even get me started, really. I'm Susan Butts. I'm the Senior Collections Manager for Invertebrate Paleo at the Peabody Museum and former editor, managing editor for Spinach.
How about Scott?
Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Ruffalo, and I'm a collection manager at the Canadian Museum of Nature. And I have been an associate editor with Collection Forum for 2 years now, maybe a little over 2 years.
Great, thank you. And Lori?
Sorry, I guess that's me.
Hi. Oh, wrong Lori.
Oh, that's Lori. That's
Oh, there's two Loris.
Lori. There's two of us.
How about Lori Benson, since she started, and then Lori Shankler?
Yes, we're the two Loris. I'm Lori Benson. I'm not part of this committee, but I was kind of curious. Been a Spinach member for a long time.
Welcome. Thank you. And Lori S.
Hi, I'm Lori Schlenker. I'm Collections and Facilities Coordinator at the University of Kansas Biodiversity Institute. I am the assistant editor for the newsletter. And apologies, I'm in my car. We're having torrential rains and flooding and alarms and everything else. So I might be in and out for part of the meeting.
Thanks, Lori. How about Harlan?
Hello, everyone. Harlan Svoboda here. I'm the herbarium curator at the U.S. National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. I am in charge of advertising for the newsletter.
Thank you. And is Leah at a different meeting today, or do you guys know if she's going to be able to make it? Anybody heard anything from Leah? Okay, well, we'll see if she shows up. Cindy?
Oh, I'm just the meeting host sitting in the background in case you need technical help.
Okay. And Mo?
And I'm Cindy's technical support in case anyone needs help or she needs help.
Great.
Your backup
Okay.
Zoom person.
Thanks. And I thank you guys. And Luce, I think you're our last one. I'm not sure she's got her mute on. Luce, do you want to introduce yourself or we can keep going? Okay, well, let's go ahead and start with the agenda. Thank you all for being here. I'm glad to see we have so many people, especially involved with the books here today, because I was hoping we could talk about that. So on the, oops, now I've lost my place. The agenda, I wanted to start with going over Collection Forum, which is the Society Journal, and let you know about the status. As usual, we need more submissions. One of our biggest problems is just trying to get enough submissions to be able to make an annual publication and a print volume, which results in us getting behind in, and not just in terms of the issues every year, but it causes problems with, okay, if we're 2 years behind on the print journal and we put an issue out now, who gets it? Do we only make it available for the people who were members 2 years ago, or do we make it available for the members from 2 years ago going forward? It's a difficulty in terms of copywriting and citations, and so I would really like to get to the point where we have enough good submissions that we're able to publish on an annual basis. And if that isn't actually possible, and from what I understand, I'm glad Susan's here, and John, maybe you guys can give some advice. Like, has this always been a problem? And if so, is there an alternative model that we could go to for publication, where we're already doing rolling publications online? But as far as the print edition, should we go to a rolling, I mean, I guess we're sort of in a rolling print edition, but do we try to keep it by year, which is getting increasingly untenable, or is there some other model that anybody's aware of? I guess I would throw that out there right now.
I can't remember, but there might be some issue with the ISSN in terms of when you're publishing. I would have to look that up, but that's one thing you should also think about.
So in terms of if we're publishing in 2021, but the issue is 2019, then
yeah, and like the frequency and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff tied to the ISSN. And again, like I haven't looked into that in a long time. But something to think about. In terms of getting articles, it's always been like pulling teeth. Like that's always, and probably the easiest way to get something is by seeing Spinach Talks and talking to people afterwards, which is probably a little less fruitful when you're doing presentations online. And then, like, for every 20 people who say they would submit something to Collection Forum, you might get one. Mm-hmm. So it's always been a hustle.
I am not as familiar with some of the other societies, but have any of them gone to online only? And is that something Spinach should be considering, given the difficulty with this, with the print, or do we have members institutional members, for example, that would be very upset about not having a print issue?
In the past, there were people that would be upset. I feel like that couldn't really be a huge percentage at this point, since everyone's so accustomed to using it. And then also, like, there's some advantages to having it online and regular in terms of listing. Like, I know we could never get on Bio One and other like serial listing services because you usually have to show like the next 3 issues in advance, which is like obviously never going to happen. I think it's always been put forth that we should go digital, and I bet the number, like the percentage of people who want one, has gone down every year and is probably below a threshold that's that critical anymore. The other thing is a lot of people were reluctant to go digital because of library access. So there's like the institutional subscriptions. And that would be alleviated if we can get on a listing service that's, you know, especially if it's like broader than, it has international readership.
That's good to know.
Have you talked to the publisher about online only?
Yes, I think it's possible. It's just a question of whether the society would support that. And I do think that when I started as editor 2 years ago, we were over 2 years behind. And I've been saying we're going to catch up since then. And there's a vague chance we might make it this year, but only if I get 3 issues out this year. And I've gotten 1. I'm working on the 2nd, and we're taking submissions for a 3rd, which makes my life difficult. And I think that it would be easier if we could, and then just the insanity of here you are in 2021 and I'm publishing 2019, 2020, 2021 in the same year, which don't correspond to the actual dates of the submission of the articles. So that is also very odd. So another idea that we had discussed, I think last year during the COVID was, and this relates to what you suggested, was approaching authors who are presenting at the meetings, but especially if we have symposia or certain topics that could maybe make a special issue, as, for example, possibly Latin American museum conservation issues, or, you know, something where there were topics. And Mariana, we had talked about this about last year, potentially. There were several people who presented, and you had mentioned that there might be some people we could approach on that. Yes. I don't know if there's an opportunity for that for last year or for this year for something along those lines.
So for last year, I can just give an update. I have been talking to some people about this, and they are still interested if we wanted to do a special issue on Latin American collections. And I don't know if that would allow us to like catch up and, you know, but I don't know.
Well, special issues definitely help us catch up, because that will be what helps catch us up this time, is a special issue on fluid preservation, which is in the process of coming out right now for a conference that was held in, what is it, 2018, Jules, in Paris?
It was 2018. Has there been any thought given to dropping the idea of an annual journal and making Collection Forum become an irregular publication? I ask this because in the past, journals used to come out in print at the end of the year, and almost all the journals that I read now regularly are doing the online release as soon as the papers are ready, and then kind of bundling them all and calling it the journal. But very few of them are even doing print publication. And I hate to see print go, but I understand the economics, so that's a mute argument. And if we're going to be doing electronic publication, do we actually need to maintain this pretense of an annual journal? If we went to an irregular publication, we could then stay on track. We wouldn't have to have issues 1 and 2 combined, which have been combined almost since the time I took over, and we wouldn't have to worry about the annual issue. We could just be an irregular journal, and the years that we had a lot of papers, we publish a lot of papers. The years we don't, and we just do an irregular journal that way. So I would like to put that forward as a model, given the historic problem of getting enough papers in. The only time I am aware of that the journal has ever managed to stay on track for several years in a row was when Paisley was editor, and that was in the early days of Spinach, when there was a lot more enthusiasm for writing papers, and there was a good influx. And it began to, when I took over as editor, it began to dribble off, and I did all the same things you're doing, Mariel. I would In those days, you actually wrote letters because there was no email, but I would write letters to almost every speaker at the Spinach meeting and ask them to contribute. And it was just exactly as you're describing now. So that hasn't changed. So I would like to see discussion, at least of an irregular issue of published papers under the name Collection Forum rather than an annual journal.
I think that's a great idea, and that would certainly, it's actually what we're doing, but we're pretending to do an annual journal, and that creates all these issues with the dates of publication and the dates of the issue.
And there's a huge advantage to what you're doing now, because it is really nice to get those papers as soon as they're ready. I really appreciate that far more than waiting for the end of the year. And I think that would play to the strengths of what you're doing right now if we could do that.
Okay. That's a great idea. I will definitely talk to Allen Press. Jules, Paul, do you have any thought about that? You know, just from the point of view of leadership of the society, do you think that that would be acceptable to most people?
As far as I know, it would be acceptable to most people. I can't say I have my finger on the pulse of that, but I don't think there'd be that many objections. I could be wrong. The one thing that I'm curious about, maybe a whole different topic, is would it help if we published a program, an abstract value for the annual meeting?
I think that would be great, because yes, we've talked about this a couple of times, and that would in a way guarantee that we would have at least one publication a year, regardless of whether we had a bunch of manuscripts, and we could tack on manuscripts to that if we have a bunch of submissions, and if not, then at the very least we would have a summary of what was presented at the meeting.
And I think that would be a nice relief to the local organizing committee, not having to worry about it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm more or less in agreement with John on this, because, you know, again, it's volunteers, it's volunteer time, and I think we just have to take things forward in a way that's sustainable for us as society in the time that we have available. And it sounds like, you know, we're always into this trap of trying to get this journal out, but that's a more modern way of working now, isn't it? Release the papers as they come along, tag it when you can. I don't think anyone will mind personally.
And you could certainly do both Paul's idea and as well as an irregular journal.
Yeah. Well, that would give us the opportunity of maybe having issue 1 and issue 2 too, or whatever, if we were there. Yes. Okay. Well, having that level of flexibility would be phenomenal. And I think we should definitely move forward to this, because I think the current model isn't working. And especially again with the idea of the dates don't make any sense. So I shouldn't be having to publish something as a 2019 journal when everything submitted in it was, you know, in 2021 or vice versa, you know, so that just doesn't make sense. Okay, wonderful. Any other ideas for special issues or the abstracts from this meeting? If we were to publish the abstracts from this current meeting or last year's meeting, how would we go about that? Does anybody have any suggestions or ideas? Reach out. I mean, we have the abstracts, right? It's not like we would have to go back and contact all the authors. We would need to get permission, but we could use what had been submitted already for the conference. Or are we talking extended abstracts?
I was just thinking abstract. You could certainly do maybe extended in the future, but if you want to do last year's, I think those are all still in a giant Excel spreadsheet, if I'm not mistaken. And this year, I'm not sure, Ruth, you'd have to talk to Ruth Zaylor, the conference organizer, about how the Spinach abstracts are. It might be a little more tricky getting those separated from the AIC ones.
And also, I mean, even though last year, it was very spinachy, let's call it. It was also ICOM, not HIST. So I don't know what the situation with that would be as well.
Everybody, I'm really sorry I was late. I went to a doctor's appointment that should have taken 15 minutes and took 2 hours. So.
No worries. Let's see. I think I still have there's the agenda for anybody who's coming late. And Lisa, if you want to sign in We actually put emails and stuff at the bottom. We're talking about the journal at the moment. So you're timely because I wanted to bring up your situation.
Okay. I don't see where to sign in. I'm sorry.
Well, your name is at the top, but you can also, we're putting names and emails and affiliations down at the bottom, at the very bottom of the abstract.
Thank you.
I was going to point out that last year and previous years, we've kind of had an abstract booklet that's been published for the meeting, printed, and like last year there's a PDF, I dropped it in there. So going backwards might be tricky, but this year I've looked, I haven't found like a cohesive PDF that you could cite. I've cited other spinach talks in a lot of like work I've done, and there's no way to do that. So going forward, I'm super excited, and I'll help you however you want.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I'll do it. But last year they do have at least a PDF, and I haven't found a booklet style for the virtual meeting this year.
I'll talk, I have a meeting with Ruth on Monday, so I'll talk with her about that.
I was going to say, if we're talking about printing the abstracts that are papers, talks for the meeting, and I think we've been running abstracts of posters also, so you have an idea of what you might want to see before you wander around. Also, the poster is already in a printed format that maybe you don't need those abstracts, but maybe copies of their posters.
Actually, AIC has had I'm on the publications committee for AIC, and we've had a huge problem with posters because we don't have a permanent place to keep them on our website. So once you decide to save your posters, you have to decide on a format that's small enough or compressed enough that you can have them year after year and also have a dedicated place for them, basically. So it's a larger issue than just saving the posters.
Yeah, also one more thing too, the problem also with posters at a joint meeting with somebody else, who owns the posters? If you're meeting with another group that maybe would like to do the same thing with the posters, who owns them? So I was just thinking about
the author, but
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I know that we have space for example, or we published the newsletter through Allen Press, and so they are archiving electronic copies of the newsletter at Allen Press, and I don't know if that's something that we could consider for posters or some sort of special online publication. That's something that we could bring up maybe with them if this is something they do for other societies. I don't know if is anybody aware of other societies that do that with posters? Well, these are good ideas though. Thank you. And so on the same, actually, I don't know if I put this somewhere else, and I'm going to wait to talk about book reviews, Lisa, until we get down onto that part of the agenda. We're talking about collection forum right now, which is of course related, but let's hold off on that. I did want to just mention member access, and Tiffany mentioned earlier that we've had some issues trying to get the updated membership lists to Allen Press, and we need to make sure we do this on an annual basis. And then I mentioned earlier, there's also the challenge of deciding who has member access to Collection Forum. If we're publishing a 2019 issue in 2021, which membership list are we using? And I think currently, Tiffany, our decision was we are using 2019, 2020, and 2021 and providing that to Allen Press. Isn't that the latest decision?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
So, well, one of the issues is that people are getting memberships constantly. So, you know, one person this week, two people that week. What do I do? Do I send all that? Do I wait? How long do they have to wait before they get access to the current issue?
I think they should have access immediately on signing up for that year. Oops. But what did other people think?
I mean, if you're trying to read a paper that you really want to read, and then it tells you that you're not a member, and that, like, you say, okay, fine. I'll become a member. And then you become a member, you pay, and then you don't get access to it. That's going to be very frustrating.
That's right.
And there
because
is some
I
sort of,
have to send that information to Alan Press.
yeah.
So it's not automatic.
Yeah, but there is like the agreement that when you purchase a membership, you are purchasing rights to the journal.
And currently you're purchasing rights to the 2021 journal, and we're publishing the 2019 online. And so you go to get the latest paper and you can't see it because so it makes no sense. So which is why Tiffany and I decided to go ahead and if you know anything 2019 on, you have access to that. But this has been, I think, a point of confusion in the past that we should clarify. And Tiffany, how much effort would it be for you to send regular updates, or is there a way to automate that in any way to get that to Alan Press?
Well, so I get an email. I get an email when anybody signs up. But then Alan Press wants that information in a spreadsheet. So I have to put that into the spreadsheet and then I have to email it to Alan Press. And it sounds, you know, I would say, oh yeah, I could do that every time somebody signs up. Okay. Yeah.
What about a little caveat or a little disclaimer on the website that says that there would be a delay? That would give you enough time, a week delay or however many days you think is viable for you. Because, you know, if you think you're going to, you know, I always say we're a microwave society. We push the button, we expect everything in 3 seconds. But, you know, we're behind the scenes running around trying to get this done for everybody. So maybe just a little statement that says, you know, thank you for your membership and you will be, you will have access to the journals within a week or something like that, you know, and that'll give you a little bit of time. It would also explain to the people so they're not hyperventilating that they didn't have instant access to something, you know, and give you a little time.
I can put that in the automatic. They do get an automatic, well, everybody should get an automatic email when you renew or register for the first time. And that gives you the link to Collection Forum as well. So I will edit that so that everybody knows that there will be a delay. And then also what we did before that Mariel had done was somebody really wanted access to a particular paper. So we just sent them, Mariel just sent them the PDF.
Yeah.
That they needed at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had that problem recently and someone sent me the PDF and it was much appreciated. That personal touch means a lot. So thank you.
That's great. That was you I was talking about. Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that it is frustrating for members who are trying to get access, especially institutional members. That has been a big challenge. I think maybe because I didn't fully understand the process of what was required, and I would get emails from the treasurer saying this person is having access difficulty, and then it would take a while to figure out that they were institutional, and then we need the IP address and get the IP address to Alan Press. And so it has, I think what we really need is maybe Tiffany to come up with a document, a workflow of what should happen and how often, and you know who to contact for each of these issues, because I think, at least for me anyway, it's been a process of figuring it out, and I don't feel I'm completely clear on each of the steps. And if we had that specified and then worked with Alan Press to make sure that they understood what we were doing, and so we send them an update. They seem to be pretty responsive about getting back to us right away with the updated membership list, as long as if we start doing this regularly and we include the IP addresses of institutional members. And did you clarify that on this last round about the IP address?
So they've sent me the template to enter all the IP addresses. And one thing I was thinking about was to talk with Teresa as treasurer to get all those EBSCO things electronic rather than scanned forms that I have to then retype the IP addresses, and that I would get that information immediately rather than Teresa having to scan them and then send the scans to me, because that's taken a long time too. So if we can make those EBSCO payments, just everything's electronic instead of checks, it just goes straight to the Spinach bank account. That would speed that process up a lot.
And minimize error too from transcribing IP addresses. Yes. Okay. Any other comments on collection forum or anybody? I guess I should say, if you are interested in any role in collection forum or any of the things that we talk about during this meeting, please put your name down at the bottom and let me know what you're interested in. We do have quite a few associate editors right now, but not everybody is available at all times. And sometimes we have periods where we need a whole bunch of people's help, and then we have long periods of drought where there's nothing. And I like to have a variety of people who are with different expertise. And unfortunately, I can't guarantee that if you're interested in plants that you get plant submissions, because we have so few submissions at the moment. But we do have a lot of fluid collection submissions right now. So if you're interested in fluid preservation and you want to help with editing, please let me know. But anyway, please let us know or let me know if you are interested in helping out with collection forum or any of the subsequent topics. Any other comments about the journal? Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Did you see that Jules mentioned in the chat about maybe adding something about having shorter pieces as well, like making it a section where you have short papers? So we might get more submissions of people only need to write like a 4 or 5 page brief as a thought, and you put a link in for what NATSCA is doing.
Actually, that's a good
2 pages.
How
Do we
much?
have 2 pages? 2 pages. Like for Berlin, I think that there was 2-page submission, 2-page abstracts. And you could like include figures even, and it was awesome. It was like all you really needed from your paper, like from a paper and a talk combined.
Yeah, that Berlin version worked really well, I thought. You'd have to talk with the next organizing committee and stuff for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea. And in fact, it sort of brings us back to other issues like what I was going to say later with Lisa, with book reviews and potentially leaflets, bringing them back into the journal. Because right now they were going into the newsletter. That's why I was hoping that Leah would be here. Brita, are you here? Do you have an opinion on the leaflet situation that you want to talk about? We could jump ahead.
So leaflets are currently being published in the online only. And I don't know if there's conversation about changing that, but that was a fairly recent change, right, Marielle?
That's my understanding. It was right before I started.
How many leaflets are there now?
I've only dealt with one myself.
Okay.
I want to say there was about 6 before that.
7 before that.
Yeah.
So there's 8 total leaflets.
They're not frequent.
Yeah.
The issue that I have with them being online is finding them, citing them. And if they're only in the newsletter, then what is the format for citing? And the same thing for book reviews, which Lisa Goldberg now is our book reviews editor. And Lisa, do you want to quickly address sort of the decisions that we've made about the book reviews?
Sure. What we've decided to do with book reviews is put them back in the journal, which I think is where they belong in terms of citability. I have 2 authors right now who are working on 2 different book reviews, and I'm reading a 3rd book, which I would really love to see reviewed. And instead in the newsletter, we're going to do what the AIC newsletter does, which is to have a list of new titles with a short description, the ISBN number, so that people can more quickly get the volume if they want it. And Gretchen Rings, librarian at in Chicago at the Field Museum, has agreed to do that, and she's already prepared the first column for us, which will get submitted to Leah shortly. So that's what we're doing. So book reviews will now become more part of the permanent literature. A journal is as you know, considered more permanent because it's peer reviewed and all of that.
So there's a possibility then, Brita or others, we could do the same with leaflets. Again, my concern primarily is the citation and discoverability. Even if you go online to the Spinach website right now, it's hard to find them. And that's another issue I wanted to bring up today. But you know, if we are going to keep them online only, the newsletters, the leaflets, then we should make them more discoverable through our website and come up with a consistent format for citation. And if that is a problem, maybe consider bringing them back into the journal along, especially if we're going to be allowing shorter manuscripts and abstract publication.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely hard to find them on the, I mean, I don't think you can find them on the website right now if you just use the search function. So
it depends on how you pitch those leaflets. If they're best practices and you want to publish them as an article, they'll be slightly different, but at least they'd be in the permanent literature. I don't know. They could be published as a review article in a way, or a best practices article. You could, for the journal, create a category for them almost.
yeah.
I have a question probably for Brita. There haven't been many leaflets that have been put out all these years, and they vary tremendously in the kinds of things they covered. There were some rather really in-depth chemical things in the very beginning, big tables of chemicals, different chemicals. And then for a while, the talk was that they were going to be for the general public, kind of for the citizen scientists and that kind of thing. And so I don't even know what kind of audience they're being geared for now, or could you tell me?
I think it is collections professionals that are trying to implement something in their own institution, and it's kind of like a how-to guide to do something. So
how to?
Yeah,
Okay.
more of a, you know.
Oh, maybe like Lindsay Woodruff's thing on boxes from packing for shipping herbarium specimens.
Exactly.
Actually, I thought that was really interesting. One of the best coverages I've seen of that particular topic. So I was just wondering, you know, who we're writing for, because I had written something for the general citizen that might have a natural history collection in their home and how to take care of it. And I gave it to Jeff Stevenson. I never heard anything. I nagged him a year or two later. Nothing ever happened. And so I wouldn't probably be a pertinent paper there any longer. So, you know, and they were always tough to cite, by the way, because I even had written to the various editors, how do I cite this thing?
And if it's a how-to guide, you want to be able to cite it. You know, you want to be able to access it and cite it, because these are very useful for the community.
I want to cite things like Lindsay's contribution. And, you know, I just don't know what to do. There used to also be like pullouts, like they were separate from the newsletter or the journal. I forgot what they originally were sent with. And they were like a freestanding piece that was obviously coming from Spinach to the members and so forth. But they just kind of floated around.
Yeah, well, back when leaflets were first proposed, it was, I think, Sally Shelton who launched the idea. They were intended to be exactly that, a standalone piece that could be, was of course in print, everything in print at the time. And I objected to that because I was desperate to fill the journal. And I said, well, let's just make leaflets a section of the journal. And I also was advocating for book reviews in the journal, and I got shot down on both of those, but maybe this is a time to reconsider. The idea that the leaflet should be an individual piece is sort of taken care of by the fact that we're now publishing each article as it's available in the journal. And again, if you were dispensing with the whole volume idea, you could do the same with leaflets. They could be cited as part of the journal. They could be a section of the journal. They could still be something that people could download just the leaflet they're interested in. And again, that would solve the problem of getting the journal out. And at the time that those were proposed, supposedly there was a list of 50 topics for leaflets that was all planned out. And I asked repeatedly for a copy of that list. I have never seen it. And as I say, we've only got 8 that ever came out. But by making it a regular part of the journal, you'll probably get more contributions, and they would be easier to cite, and they could still be their own publication in effect because they could be, you know, they're electronics.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal to be. I mean, again, given that we are so desperate for content for the journal and for good content, for citable content, and these are certainly things that would be.
Well, it's disheartening to hear that we're still having the same problems we were having back in the 1990s. And so it's time to solve them and move on.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a way that can help.
Could throw another wrench in the works or an idea, and that is to, if it, you have to decide how important it is that they're citable. If you post them on the wiki, then they can be updated as new information and new materials become available. So I'm just throwing it out there as an option. AIC has certainly gone that way with their catalogs, which are compilations of different treatment options. We now have a very extensive wiki that includes all of that information and continues to grow. It's certainly not citable in the same way, however, and that's the biggest thing to grapple with, probably.
This is a really important and good point of view, Lisa, because it also relates to our book situation right now. I want to make sure we don't run out of time to discuss the books. I'm going to do that right now, but before we move ahead, I would like to say that because we're talking about making some changes and making updates, one of the biggest things I'm going to need help with is a web liaison, somebody to help with updating if I need to update, for example, the copy editing guidelines on the web, which is not in sync with what we're currently doing with collection form. And if we're going to make sure people can find leaflets or find what they need, then I need someone to help work with Leah to update the web, and also with Allen Press. So if anybody has expertise in that and is interested, or would like to help me, or know somebody who might, please send them this direction. Now, to go to books, we have 2 books currently right now. With some discussion going on. The first is fluid preservation, a fluid preservation volume, which will hopefully be the Bible of fluid preservation. And both Jules and John are involved, along with Dirk Newman. And we have a final copy that is going to the copy editing and be published. And John, Jules, my current thought is I've approached Aptara, which is the copy editing and project management company that produced the preventive conservation volume. And I'm waiting on a quote from them. And then I also am waiting on a quote from Sheridan Books for the printing, and get a couple of other quotes. If anybody has any suggestions for other companies to work with for book publication, I would be more than happy to receive that. But we are in the process of moving forward with publication. We have a budget line item for this book from the last 2 budgets, and so hopefully we'll be able to bring that out soon, which is very exciting. John, Jules, do you want to make any comments about that?
No, thanks, really. Yeah.
Okay.
Glad to get there.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I guess one of the biggest concerns with our books through Spinach has been trying to get them to an international audience. Right now, most of our books are available through university products or AIC. And if you are in the EU or you're in Australia, trying to get a copy is much more expensive because you have to pay for shipping. So we're trying to find an international distributor. And I have contacted John Dunphy at University Products, and he has a contact who works with, who could be a distributor for Spinach books in the EU, and potentially, and I think they go to New Zealand. They're currently not in Australia. But one of the conditions that this company has is that they would like to be sole distribution, or have the right of sole distribution for the Spinach titles. Of course, they can't do so for our preventive conservation volume because we have an agreement with AIC. And but if the other titles that at least are going through university products, they apparently have a good working relationship with them and could make some of our titles available internationally. So that I would hope to potentially extend to the fluid preservation volumes as well. So that's something that we should consider and discuss. And as I get more information, I'll probably bring that up to the council, and we can be discussing it with the authors of the upcoming book.
Mariel, have you
Yes.
contacted Jim Black with International Academic Projects?
No.
He's a publisher or a intermediary out of London, and he has quite a hold in the conservation community on the book sales internationally, in Europe especially, and has relationships with Routledge and Butterworths and other publishers. So I think it might be interesting to contact him and ask if he'd like to carry Spinach books.
I know we talked to him about it past, like in the health and safety days. I feel like we sent him some to sell.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what the agreement. I'd have to look into that, but I'll make a note and I'll follow up with you.
That would be great, Susan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any suggestions like this? Because I don't have the contacts, and if anybody does, I'd be very much appreciate it.
Lisa, can you remind me what's his first name?
Jim or James Black.
Okay. And what's the name of the company again? Just so I can find it in emails and stuff.
International Academic Projects. Yeah, I had
Okay.
trouble finding it too in my email.
This would be from 2010 or so. So
yeah.
Okay. We might actually have it in like a committee report too. So.
Great. Okay, that would be really helpful. And for some reason, the name of the other, here it is, the other company is preservationequipment.com. That's the company that works with John Dunphy and University Products.
Oh,
That's PEL. That's the European branch. Yeah.
Yeah, they sell the preservation pencil, which is a wonderful little device. And they sell high-end devices. I don't think they sell so much in the way of publications, and they only have like a handful of things they sell, as far as I know.
Yeah, their title doesn't imply that they are a book distributor.
But IAP is, so that might be a route.
Yes, that would be excellent lead to follow up on. Thank you very much. All right, so that brings us to the next book, unless anybody else has any questions or comments about the fluid preservation book or distribution. The next book that we is the health and safety book, is of course been around for a long time and is the sort of the Bible of health and safety, but I've just approached Lisa. Actually, do you want to talk about our meeting the other day, since you're sort of more in the loop on this, and bring it up? Sure.
Sure. The health and safety book is really clearly out of date, and there were a lot of topics we didn't cover thoroughly, and we'd like to update it, but that means an even larger volume than it already is. Simultaneously, the American Industrial Hygiene Association has created a working arrangement with AIC, and there's a museum and cultural heritage working group, which includes members from both organizations, and will hopefully include members from Spinach as well soon. And one of our goals is to create guidelines, to create easy to find information to help people who have health and safety concerns at universities, at archaeological sites, in museums of all sizes, historic houses, etc. And we realized that taking apart the book and putting it into an online forum, and we're not quite sure what it will be yet, will enable us to reuse the material that's reusable, provide updates and provide links to a huge web of resources that are out there, including examples of standard operating procedures, job hazard analyses, handling procedures for hazardous materials, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a conversation earlier this week with, well, Kathy Hawks, Kathy Makos, and me. We're three of the original editors, had a conversation with Marielle and also with Paul about potentially transferring this project to an electronic format. We think it'll take a few years to do, and the book will sell in the meantime, but hopefully the result will be something that allows people in need of information to create their own path and find the information they need more quickly. And we'll still provide them with the foundational information they need. So that's where we're at. Do you have anything to say, Susan, since you were involved in the original?
I mean, making it updatable online, I mean, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And like, it was always an issue, the size, mainly just because of the price tag.
Right.
Right. And you didn't want to price anyone out of something that was, you know, that useful, like as a textbook, like as a, you know, industry tool sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Don't ask me for, you're not going to ask for the digital files though, are you?
No, actually, Kathy.
We have them. We have them.
I have copies of each chapter of the final version.
Yeah.
Kept on my computer for years. So
we have them archived.
Yeah. So I think we're okay there for now. We're also talking about converting a lot of the information to charts and rubrics so that they'll be more visually accessible on a screen. We're not sure yet whether it will be a website, whether it'll be an ebook. We're exploring and thinking about various options, but in the meantime, this AIHA, AIC, and hopefully now Spinach committee has groups of volunteers who really want to write these quote guidelines, which are meant to be short papers on particular topics like handling of radioactive objects, or be they geologic specimens or things that military museums hold, for example.
Right.
So that's where we are with that, and I guess expect more updates slowly but surely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, we're just about out of time, but the last thing I wanted to mention very quickly, since Carol, I hope, is still here, is that we need to consider, I know we may have already, Carol, as an archives chair, a permanent book archive for the society, because my understanding, and Susan, maybe you can help with this too, is that as editors change, we just mail books to each other. And there's not really a centralized archive for Spinach books and publications. Carol, can you?
Well, the central repository for the Spinach, for all Spinach, has been the Smithsonian Institution's archives. So everything that is sent to me, I put down, and you can find it on SI archives. If you go up on the Smithsonian archives and put in, don't write, I got to ask them to change this, but the only way to query it is if you say, if you say Spinach, if you type Spinach and not the Society for the Preservation, you'll find all the archives that have been given over. When I took over archives, I ended up depositing about 18 banker boxes worth of material over at the archives. And they have search guides that'll give you a ballpark of what is in the boxes, that if you're looking for something in particular.
Do we have a list? I think, sorry, go ahead, Susan.
Go ahead. Muriel, I think, like when I passed it over to Chris Johnson, like I sent a pile of stuff that was ready to be archived to the Smithsonian, but sent her like the working files.
She
So-
contacted me recently. She has about 4 boxes of books that she was going to send, and we weren't
Oh,
sure
like
where
the actual books.
texts,
Yeah.
right? So we weren't sure
Mhm.
where they should go to me, or I mean, it seems like they should go to the Smithsonian. Also, though some of them are extra copies, so we're discussing whether or not those should be available for like raffle items or you know. So we have the archive, but we have the extra copies too. So
Right.
Right.
The archive only needs 1 copy. I only need 1 copy.
Yeah.
But if you want to consider selling them, you know, you can set up a little account on Amazon and sell them through Amazon.
So that's we did that in the past too. That's a big issue. So there's a couple things. First of all, anytime you have books in your office, they're like assets of Spinach, and they have to be accounted for to the treasurer. And when I was the editor, Ruth was treasurer, and she would say, like periodically, I don't know how frequently, but send me a report of everything you have and where it's located, right? And that was one of the rationale for not having stuff in your office, right? Or like in the warehouse or something. But there was a bunch of health and safety books stored like at our off-campus warehouse because I was the one that had to send them to University Products when their inventory ran low, right? So like the inventory was maintained at the Peabody, but then shipped to University Products when they needed more. We also had an Amazon account, which was difficult because it was maintained by me, but it was the institutional account, but you couldn't get money to go into the account, into Spinach's account. Like we never could work that out because that's not how Amazon works. And so then there had to be this, you know, accounting of everything that was sold and, you know, transferring funds to Ruth, and then Ruth had to get them into the Spinach account. So that was like a huge deal. And eventually we just said, okay, we're not going to sell stuff on Amazon anymore.
Okay.
That being said, John Dunphy was perfectly happy with us selling stuff on Amazon. He didn't have any exclusivity, but you would have to, you know, there might be other books that do have exclusivity, like the conservation book.
So perhaps would be better just to send extra copies to John and allow him to add them to his inventory, because that way he gives us an inventory at the end of the year, and like, should I print more? And if I'd known that we have 3 boxes of, you know, or 20 copies somewhere else, then that would determine how many more we print.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally an editor will get asked for one. So we didn't do any comps for book reviews, but every once in a while you get asked for a copy of a book for something, and sometimes it's granted. I would get rid of them. get them to John.
Well, I have a question. Most institutions keep 2 copies of things for archives. Is there a second copy elsewhere, or is there a second for electronic copies? Is the Smithsonian making a second copy or maintaining a second copy offsite? Do we know that?
Well, what I've been doing is since I started for the last 2 years, which isn't very long, I've been asking that a copy come to the editor and a copy go to archives of everything, so that but then I'm going to end up with all these copies in my office that, you know, I don't know, you know, when I transfer over this, I would need to send everything, which is also problematic given what Susan said about, you know, trying to keep track of who has what for the treasury report, for tax purposes, etc. But I think that having that be consistent, but I agree with having 2 copies at a minimum.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's also very helpful for the editor to have copies, to have a reference collection to refer to for, of course, you know, it could get rather large, but it was difficult in going through, like trying to decide what is the format of the journal. Well, I actually didn't have a copy of the journal.
Yeah.
when I started, and so that was tricky. I know we need to finish up here. We're already over time, but one of the two things I would like to mention, Carol, if there were a way to get a list, an inventory of what is currently in the archive, that would be very helpful. I don't know if we can get that from the search portal, but just
I can send you, what I can send you is what I was given. I make up these lists for archives. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I make up these lists for archives. And then I say, in this box, this is what's there. And I try to organize the stuff. But when I took over archives, I even had Carolyn Rose archives that they found up in the attic of the Smithsonian. So I tried to organize who gave me the files, and then organize them according to the best I can do through date. I try to do it chronological. I try to do, like, I had all of these accounting reports, review reports from the and financial statements that went back to 2005. I'm missing one, but I could send you my files. And then historically, there have been some other accessions, so I could copy all of this and send you all of this stuff that I have that was given to me.
That would be great. We can then put that in the Spinach Dropbox, so that's available, and maybe have that periodically updated. The other reason for that is that currently online at the spinach.org website are older issues of Collection Forum. Some of them we only have abstracts for, and some of them need to be cited. I would like to get actual copies of all of these old issues, but we need to find out which print editions we have, or and get them scanned and make those copies available, because we currently are we getting requests for those, and I'm not sure where to turn.
Well, archive.
I think if anyone needs, I have all the printed journals. If anyone, I'd be happy. So the first ones are really peculiar things physically. No, they're like glossy magazines, and I don't know what they were thinking in those days, but before Paisley came on.
I have some of those. I think I have all the issues as well.
I do too, but I can give anything that's missing to anybody who wants them.
There's no electronic archive of old Collections Forum.
There is. So they are. There are electronic archives. They didn't get put on the new Allen Press site because it was too expensive to put all of the back issues on.
So they're not on our website.
They're on spinach.org, but some of them are just abstracts and some of them are missing.
So it sounds like it's worth having someone like John or Ann go to the website, see what's missing, see what they have that can get scanned and be put on to make that a complete set. Yes,
that's what I'm hoping.
But before you do it, check with Allen Press and see what they're going to charge to host.
Well, we wouldn't be putting it at Allen Press. The idea was
just on the Spinach webpage. Okay.
On the Spinach webpage is where most of them are, but there are the gaps and missing things, and some places where there's only abstracts. So if we could make the Spinach, I mean, it is a little confusing. If you go to Spinach, it says for the most recent manuscripts, go to Allen Press, and you'll have to log in. But the older historic ones we can access on spinach.org.
Yeah, you were missing one of the collection forums, and it so happened that I had a copy, but I had sent everything off to archives, and there is someone you can access. If you see something on the Smithsonian Archive website that's Spinach and you want a copy of it, you get in touch with this. If I put it in my report, but you get in touch with this person over at Archives. They scan it, they sent it. We were missing a collection forum. They scanned it, they sent it to us electronically so you can put it up on the website. The problem is the ones that are abstracts only, they don't have copies, and I've never seen copies. So what I was trying to do, because of COVID, I haven't been able to access, Lisa said that she had some of the older copies that were missing, but they're in her office and nobody has access right now to their various offices. And I only have access to the museum, the Maryland office. That's where I was earlier this morning. So
So maybe we can contact Ann Pencil or John Simmons and get them to maybe give us a scan for those.
Yeah.
That might be more easy than trying
If-
to.
if they're happy to send it to me, I can scan them and then send them back their hard copies. And even the scanned copies I can print out and send to archives as a, not a Xerox, but you know what I mean, as a scanned printed copy. And so that Smithsonian Archives will have a whole set of all the collection forums. I've been trying to fill in as many blanks as I can fill in. And then the electronic version can go on the Spinach website.
Just tell me what you want.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. That would be wonderful to get that collection fleshed out. I know some of them actually, I think our Jules and John still here were references in some of the fluid manuscripts, and people were asking, how do I get access to this publication? And it wasn't available through the website. So, well, thank you, everybody. It's 10 minutes after. Does anyone have any last minute concerns or issues? But raise your hand. Or, well, thank you very much for attending. And this has been very productive. I really appreciate all of your feedback. Final thing is, if anybody is interested in assisting as in the position of managing editor, I would be happy to split off some of the roles that I have, especially the financial ones. But I mean, it's wonderful that Lisa stepped up and dealing with the book reviews. But anyway, keep an ear out or eye out for anybody who's interested in help, because I would like to diversify this position a little bit more. Thanks.
Mariel.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a good weekend. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night. Nostar.